All right, on today's edition of Artistry Unearthed, we got a special guest, Dizzy Aster from the band Pretty Boy Floyd. We are going to talk to him today about his start in music, as well as get into a separate episode to where we will discuss his tattoos and where he got his tattoo work done. So let's just dive right into it and welcome Dizzy to our show. Those are all.
So those are all. Did you took individual? Like I'm guessing over probably 100 and just put them in the wall and mucked around it.
We actually poured. Those are all plaster molds,
Yeah.
and we poured. There's probably 160, I think, of them.
Yep.
Individual molds that we poured, and then we took them and put them on two 6 foot by 3 foot sections, and glued them all on there, hung them on the wall, and then we hand painted all of them. So yeah. It took us probably about 2-3 weeks
Yeah.
to do it all.
That's
But
when I was in the last time we went out and I was in London. We went to this bar. It's apparently it's pretty famous. It's like well known out there in the underground scene. It's called like the Garlic the Garlic Factory or something.
Yeah.
And it's got an underground. Underground looks like an old pirate dungeon.
Oh, right on.
You go to the bar, it's a little hole in the wall, and it's actually, it's on this strip where it's just nothing but like the street is like 15 feet across, so the buildings are all super dense, super tight, and then just this little hole in the wall bar in between all these clubs. When I was there, it was just packed full of people going into these clubs, girls in heels and skirts, guys dressed in suits and ties. And then so my girl took me to this little hole in the wall, and a couple like punk rocks, goth kids in there and stuff. But then underground, you go into this little stairwell, like super crazy, and it's just pitch black with like one UV light and then like candles illuminating everything.
oh wow.
Like the skulls and like the ropes and netting and yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's awesome, man.
Wow.
Yeah, if we go back, we'll have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'll shoot you I'll find out the name so that when you head out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. Yeah.
Sweet. So cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to out of your busy schedule to come on the show and do this interview with us and hang out for a while and let us kind of pick your brain as to what what you've got going on and tattoo wise and music wise. So so how did you start playing guitar? When did you get into playing guitar, and what projects have you done? I know one for me comes to mind, and that was your Jet Black Romance project that you'd done. But aside of that, I'm sure you've had others in there. I mean, I'm an ex-musician and whatnot. So
no, that's an awesome question. Good way to start this. It's when I was 9, I mean, you're from the same hometown as me, so you know it,
right.
My grandma was like, you're not getting caught up in all this street bullshit. Like, you gotta do sports or something. And so
Sports, right? Right.
so I tried like the roller hockey thing for a little. That lasted like a month, maybe 2 months. And then baseball was the one where I had to do a couple seasons and I hated it. Like it was fun to like play with the other kids, but you could tell, right away from like an early age that just something's not clicking. Like I'm not friends with these guys. And I was just miserable, a little kid. I'd cry like, I don't want to go today. We gotta do something. Like you can't just sit around or go hang out, running wild on the streets. And we went by there was this little music shop by the grocery store out there. It's called ABC Music. And I just was like, hey, why don't I do that? And she's like, are you sure? Yeah. So she got me a guitar, and I just never put it down, you know.
Right on, dude.
9 years old. I remember that Christmas, I got my guitar and started taking lessons. And by that time, like it was time I was like 10, you know, when I got into lessons, I was already listening to like Stray Cats.
Okay.
Right on.
I loved like that kind of vintage rock sound, you know, where it was like guitar and pop punk. And I loved like some of the pop punk bands at that time. And so I told my instructor, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is, you know, like, he tried and show me the classical, like, you're going to learn the A, you know, how to read music. And it just was like, okay, if I do that, can you show me what I want? And it was a trade-off. And I was stuck with him. The guy's name was Jay, and I just looked him up recently. And he's got his own studio and stuff. And he's doing really well. But I stuck with him for a couple of years. And it got to a point where I just, you know, you're a kid and you grow into different interests.
When did you get in your first band?
It was shortly after that, you know, because I was like, all right, I don't really need lessons anymore. I know what to do. And it was like 12 years old.
Right on, dude.
The first band.
Yeah.
This new kid moved to town, and he's actually still doing music. He's really successful at it. But we clicked, and we did a bunch of like pop punk covers and stuff. And we'd play at the like open mic nights at coffee shops and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like 12. By the time I was 14, 15, I was in bands like 2 or 3, you know. Tried a couple different things, like Hoobastank, 311. We're like,
cool.
Yeah, that's a totally different scene
Yeah, man.
than what was going on when I was there. Yeah.
That's all they wanted. And I was showing up. I didn't look too different than I do now. Like, let's just say, like 14, 15-year-old. And I looked, you know, I didn't have the long hair, but same style and everything. And I was showing up to these like alt rock, you know, third wave reggae rock things, you know, and guys were just not happy with me ever. But I played my heart out, you know. I was like, oh, I can play guitar, like I can do it. And eventually I found this group of guys that were a few years ahead of me. They'd already graduated, and I was about 16, 17 at the time, and we started jamming, and we had this punk band called Chump Change. And there's actually still some footage of it on YouTube somewhere. I was watching it months ago, but of us, we used to play like the Gilman, Hazmat, Burnt Ramen. These were like all like world, like famous, renowned like punk clubs. If you grew up in the Bay Area, they're like you're dying to get into.
Right.
So we got it. We were like doing it all the time, and that went on until I was like 20, 21. And we did really well. We had like a handful, like 15, 16 songs, but we always played like the same 12, like 10 or 12, you know?
Yeah.
We did an album, and it didn't really go anywhere. We didn't really know how to promote or what to do past that point, or like understand the business aspect of it.
Yep.
But we were in talks with Epitaph Records. If you guys are familiar with
Yeah.
So, very, very minimal. They were piquing interest.
Okay.
Just pulling at that curtain. And us being young and stupid, we fucked it all up. But, you know, they handed us a golden platter, and we just shoved it right in there, you know, like just stupid. Didn't know what we were doing because we weren't paying attention.
Right.
We did not read the road very well with that. We were caught up in drugs. So our singer, he had his leg cut off in a tractor accident. I know it sounds crazy.
That's metal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
His leg had been fully cut off. And there's some timeline differences here. Like, so this goes way back, but what happened was that introduced the painkillers. And when you're young, and this is before the kind of like craze that we have now with all the,
Yeah.
drugs and all that stuff, kids. One Vicodin turns into like 4 Oxycontins, turns into full on smack and meth,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
bro. And that's all, before I turned 20. Like that was,
Oh jeez.
we're all living together. We all lived. There was like 8 of us living in one really nice house in Vallejo, right off Amador Street, across from the police station.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know where that's at. Yeah, I know where that's at. we share a hometown. Yeah, and we know a lot of.
I thought you spent some
those
overnights
areas.
there.
Right. Well, no, because my dad worked for the Vallejo PD.
Oh,
So yeah.
well, that's something else entirely. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we had like the mini ramp, like half pipe in the backyard, and
Right.
the parties every night. The rotating, like, 2 friends would get up at 6 a.m. to drive to college, and then next one get up to go to work. 3 would still be hungover from the night before. Just the wild house. But that band, man, like I owe a lot to that band. Like these were like my best friends, and I learned a lot just about playing and the hustle and grind of it. Even though we were all spun out, you write that kind of that synergy and that symbiotic thing that happens with band members, where you're together and you live these things together and you grow through these things together, and you write and play. Playing is the most important, like when you write it, you play it and create it. And like I said, once things started getting to a point where it's time to break through the next wall, we just messed it up. And we kind of it happened so quick. Within a week, we had our one last show, and it was a big show. The place was packed out, and our singer, we had 2 singers. I was on guitar, and then we had a male and female singer. That was kind of like the cool thing to do with like punk bands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she played guitar as well. So our male singer was lead vocalist, but then our female singer showed up to that show. Like she missed one song. Like she was so late, she missed our first song. Gets on stage and falls immediately back over. Just spun out.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
We're all wasted. It's just, I remember thinking in my head as I'm on stage holding my guitar, just like, we're never gonna get that email or phone call back from those guys, at that record place. Like it's just never gonna happen.
That sucks, man.
And they were the ones in charge of it. Like that female was the one in charge of, that communication. And it's just by that point, after that show, we just stopped talking. Like I moved out of that house immediately. It's just something's got to change. And I kind of walked away from music for like 10 years for that. Maybe 8, but yeah, maybe 8 years. But then once I got back into it, then came the early makings of Jet Black, where I was more serious, more of an adult.
Were these guys from Vallejo too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all went to school in Benicia. Some went to Vallejo.
Wow.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Right
Holy
on.
cow! So you put together Jet Black. And did you guys have that whole sleaze glam, vibe that's what you were looking for, or did you guys just kind of create the sound that you wanted?
Oh no! So Jet Black, I'm talking about Chump Change. They were from the same. I'm sorry. Jet Black.
Oh.
Was. These guys we were from all over.
Okay.
So they were from. Do you know where like the Stockton area is?
Yeah.
Okay, so half the band was down there, and then myself and Colton had another band at the time called Mercy. And we got like on a compilation and did a couple demo things, but Colton was like a very strong and like gifted writer and was like very like just pushing, like check this out. I just did this whole like 6-track EP thing last night, like let's learn these songs. And I was like, okay, whatever he's doing, I gotta stick with him because he's he knows what's up. and we were in Sacramento. So I moved to Sacramento. He came from Vacaville, and we just bumped into each other out here. Hit it off, and he knew of the guys down in Stockton area. And he told them, like, hey, I think they're looking to start something new. And, we formed like one group, and then members left from that group. So then we had like pick and pull guys from both projects, and then moved on to Jet Black Romance. And they had the other band, they were called Faith and Bullets. Like, they had done a lot. They had done a lot of cool stuff. But they had like a real, almost kind of Steel Panther thing going, where like it was more on the serious side with like the big hair and the 10 bandanas, the different colors, and
Right.
but it was on the serious side, like it was really cool. It wasn't so sleazy or like stripped down looking. But then what would become Jet Black Romance was we tried to do, we got together, we're like, all right, let's just focus on something a little more stripped down. And it pains me to say that because it's so cliche. I think every band or musician goes through that, where they're like, we're just going to get back to the
grassroots, right?
And so we went through that, and it worked, and it was a lot of fun. And we did like maybe 2 EPs, and then our full length. But by the time we got around to wrapping up our full length, it was already coming down.
The full length was great. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That's a great album.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. I still have a bunch of copies that from the last time we got together, and Rick had all the merchandise, and he's just like, yeah, if you want to take some, or if you have people that need, whatever, and I just grabbed as much as I could because we all knew it was done.
Well, absolutely, man. You'll have to let me know what the cost is, because I'll pick up a copy for sure.
Yeah, man, totally.
Oh yeah, no, I could just send you guys some. Like I said, I'll just send some out. So
Right on. Yeah.
Dude, that'd be awesome. Because that's a spectacular album. I pulled it up on Spotify, dropped, and just ripped that album all the way home, one evening.
thank you.
So
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to play those songs live. Like, and that's what I've always been for. It's just like, I know a lot of guys will go record, and that's their thing now. Nowadays, like, a lot of bands love to, like, they'll do the single like every other week, and then put together like an EP and just record and release. I loved playing. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't give a shit if we record this. If we write it, let's go play it. And it was so fun to play those songs because they were the first time ever that I had a group that wrote challenging stuff and frustrating, and it pushed each of us into something new. It was like heavier than I'd ever done before. Some of the songs still had like kind of like a punky pop feel. Some were a little catchier. Some, I think there was maybe a couple ballads on there. I know we had like maybe 4 or 5 ballads, but only 1 or 2 really got recorded.
Oh.
Yeah, but it just, dude, there was probably, in the time of that band was together for like maybe 5 years, maybe 4 or 5, probably over 50 songs, and only like 10 or 12 have been released, maybe 15, but there was so much music that just was thrown on the table and then kind of set aside and never like laid down. And it's such a bummer because each of those guys are so talented and great writers. They're great, but I always knew that, and it took a while to get there, and everyone started feeling it. That just no matter what we wrote or how many times we played live, you need that extra push, that professional push to get. I mean, that's what like professional sound engineers and producers are for. And
Yeah.
we did it. We got locked into doing it ourselves. And Rick, who recorded, Rick was responsible for recording and producing that entire album, and it was amazing, right?
Where'd you record it at? Did you record it in Sacramento?
It was recorded in the Manteca, Stockton area,
Okay.
and so and he has his own studio, and he put a lot of time and money into that studio, and probably one of the most professional things I've ever seen for like a home setup. And I think he admittedly was experimenting with a lot of things during the time of recording that, because it took some time. It took a long time to do that. But at the same time, some things felt a little rushed or forced
Okay.
because we were all experimenting and we didn't know how to speak up or be like, you know what, fuck that, let's redo this. Like this whole song, we just spent 6 weeks with this one song. Fuck it, let's start over and spend 12 weeks on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to give them time, because a lot of times when you're being backed by like a label or someone's financing the studio, you have a fucking time limit.
Sure.
And we didn't take advantage of the fact that we did it. And I know some of the guys felt really strong about that afterwards, even though it was great. Like, we love it. I would never say anything bad about it. Just that had things been approached a little differently, I feel like we would have come together better as a band and maybe lasted and done things differently, further ahead. But that studio, it was pretty cool to do that.
I was always a recording kid. I was always a recording kid. I like the tech. I like the grind of it. I like being up for 40 hours straight recording scratch tracks. And then, I love doing live shows, but I'm tall and goofy and I felt vulnerable. But you put me in a studio with a bunch of gear and that's where I felt right.
Yeah, that's how Rick was. Rick was, he loved that guy would just be up all night. Like, there'd be sometimes he'd be like, what? Dude, I just woke up. Like, you were still up last night doing this. Like, I'm still up.
So how did that transition you into hooking up with Pretty Boy Floyd?
So this is the interesting and like back and forth kind of story. It's pretty cool. But during Jet Black Romance, Colton, the singer and bass player, had done a lot with Pretty Boy Floyd in the past. Colton had been hired on to be part of Pretty Boy Floyd's tours and live shows, and so he had that in.
Okay.
A lot of shows with Pretty Boy Floyd. So we played a lot of places, got a lot of cool exposure. Minimal, but just a cool reach.
Right. Yeah, because Pretty Boy Floyd's been around since '89. Or even before that, but that breakout album in '89 was it for them. So
yeah. And so Colton had introduced me to the guys in Pretty Boy Floyd at the time, and we'd done a few shows with them. So you start kind of just, oh hey, what's up? How you been? Yeah, it's business as usual. And I had kind of become friends with their guy Ashes at the time. Ashes was playing guitar, Pretty Boy Floyd, for a while.
right.
And me and him just became buds online. He's a really nice guy. Still is, but just he had done some awesome stuff, Static X, Devil Driver, and then into Pretty Boy Floyd. And he knew sometimes it's not a matter of how good you are, it's just a matter of, or how talented someone may be, but you just need that shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they played, Pretty Boy Floyd played and won for Live Performer of the Year at Hard Rock Hell in 2022, so like 2 years ago. in London, and I was out there at the time, because that's where my girl lives. So I was out there with her for a couple weeks, and we went to that Hard Rock Hell performance, and Pretty Boy Floyd was playing. They headlined that event, and they won, and they had like this huge just success off that, like, you know. And that's where I caught back up with Ashes. And he's like, "What are you doing out here?" And I was just like, "Oh, you know, blah blah, my girl and everything, and we were coming out here." And he's like, "Oh, that's crazy." So we started chatting again, and then a couple weeks later, he hit me up and was like, "Hey, do you have anything going on? You know, like in the next couple months?" And I was like, "Not really. You know, Jet Black Romance had kind of already had its go." He's like, "Do you think you can learn the set? Because I need someone to back me up. I have a couple shows I can't make." And I was like, "Oh."
Sure, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
I apologize. It wasn't a couple weeks. It was about a year. I'm sorry. So it was about a year had passed, and there was some connections between that time.
Sure.
So after that Hard Rock Hell show, yeah, we stayed in contact. But then, so about a year had passed, and that's when he hit me up. And I was just like, "Hey, don't fuck with me, man." Like, I was like, "I'm gonna do it today. Like, I'll send you all the songs today. Like, because he's like, just send me you playing like just the solos, and the intros. Like, and that's it. I just need the solos for this song, and the intros, and then I'll know you can do it." I was like, "Okay," and I did it. And
Nice.
I've always been open to like constructive criticism, so I told him, I was just like, "Please tell me like what's wrong so I can do it right." And he's just like, "Man, you know, just fix this and that, and everything else will be good." And that was it. And a lot of these guys, man, like a lot of he's such a fucking awesome guy for that. I always laugh when I think of that, because if you ever meet Ashes, he's a really nice guy, really quiet, very vampire-esque.
Right.
Sounds familiar.
And total ladies man too. Like I give a shit about that as well. But yeah. So I was like, "All right, dude. So I'll I guess I'll hear from you." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." You would have thought I was waiting on a call back from like a first date or something. The amount of shit that I like, the sleepless nights of just motherfucker. Like I don't like. Why isn't he calling me back? Why isn't he calling me back? And he'd also told me, "Don't tell anyone." And so I was like, "Fuck! Like this is so frustrating. Did I just get fucking played? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just kind of jerking me around, like just being like, 'Oh, I'll throw this nice young kid some hope.'"
Right. And then send his dreams crashing to the ground.
There's also, you know, or was he just fucking with me? You know, like, was it not a nice gesture, but just like a haha, you know, kind of thing? And so I had messaged him, and he's like, "Oh, dude," he's like, yeah, give me a minute, I'll call you right back." He called me right back and goes, "Here's 3 dates." And I was like, "What?" Like, okay, I gotta freshen up again. Like, I'm gonna have to relearn some of this stuff, but okay, because it had been a few weeks, yeah, that had gone by. And he's like, I'm sorry, I've been busy." He had all this other stuff going on. And yeah, he's like, "Here's the dates, be there." And I was like, "Well, okay, how does this work? Like, what do I do?" He goes, "Don't worry, Steve Summers knows everything. Just, he'll take care of you." Okay, what does that mean? "Oh, just don't worry, he'll take care of you." And if I thought Ashes was like hard to get in touch with,
Steve's worse, I'm sure.
fucking dude. And so I get shit about this all the time. We room every time we go on tour. He's my room guy, so we're very close. He's very caring, very accommodating. But he's a businessman, you know. That's how this band became a legacy. You know, he's a fucking businessman, and he just didn't have, and I didn't think about it at the time, but he just didn't have the time to cater to some young guy who's just got to show up and play the songs. You know, it's a professional gig. Like, I'm getting Like, hey, I'm fucking paying you to know the shit, so just be there and know the shit.
Yeah.
And I would text him and be like, hey, it's me, Dizzy. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, bud, how you doing? And then I'd be like, oh, I'm great. So I just had a couple questions about this. If you let me know. Nothing. Never get a response. And, it's that's just the way of it. Just sometimes you're busy. Sometimes you got to focus on other shit. And kind of wanted to see my drive. Like, he admitted to me later. I was like, dude, you blew me off so hard. Like, there was a point when I was just hoping he would call me to be like, nah, I'm not going. But he's like, oh, I just wanted to see your drive, which I think he was just fucking with me. But, yeah, he's like, I just want to see how determined you were, like how much you wanted it. And so I was like, oh, okay, fair enough, but I'm ready. And he's like, okay, well, the shows you were going to be doing, they're canceled. Like, they canceled that show. It was like 1 or 2 shows. They canceled both those shows. Shit. He goes, but we have a tour with the 69 Eyes coming up in like 3 weeks. Can you be on the road for it was like 5 or 7 days? I was like, yeah, no problem. It's like, okay, cool. So you're going to play second guitar. It's like, okay, awesome. So Ash just called me and was like, hey, yeah, so you're going to be rhythm guitar. I'll be lead guitar. We're going to do this. We're going to open up for 69 Eyes. It was like seven dates or something.
So I got an interesting question. So how did you guys split up a single guitar band and make it 2? Because that's intriguing to me.
Oh, dude, it sounds massive.
I'm sure it does. That guitar sound's got to sound, yeah, like you said, just huge.
It's one of those things where I had heard from other guitar players that have been in that band that I've met, where they're like, using tracks is one thing to fill up that back end of it so this doesn't drop out when you do solos and stuff. But to actually have the second guitar player there just would make this on another level. And I didn't understand it at the time, and I thought the same thing. Just like, well, what am I going to be doing? Like, because if we're just both playing the same thing, and Ash is such a pro that he was just like, don't worry, just play the songs. Okay. So
just playing the song.
Yeah, and so we show up. He had sent me a couple of videos of like, hey, do this way, but for the most part, just play the songs. I was like, okay. And this fool laid down just like harmonies over harmonies, and he'd take the leads, and then during like the verses or choruses, he would just be playing like the icing on top of it, and it was awesome. Now there were times where, like you said, if you listen to that album, Leather Boys album, a lot of those songs, the guitar's just straight ahead drive. You don't hear dual like a Guns N' Roses track, But when you have that in stereo, like, in a live performance, like your left and right guitar player actually doing the thing, it sounded awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty rad.
Are you guys doing that for any of the tours coming up? I know that I'd seen at some point that there was mention of bringing back another guitar player. So are you guys going to have a 5th member at any of these shows at these upcoming tours?
So yeah, it's like one of these things with this group that I learned is like never say never. Like it could happen. Steve's always working, and so he could be working on that simultaneously, aside from like 10 other things at the same time. And it's one of those things where if I find out that there's a rehearsal a couple days before one of the shows, then there's going to be another guitar player. So if I get that message, just saying, hey, like, what do you think of this guy? Then there's going to be another guitar player. And we try and like plan it like strategically for what would be appropriate. But for the most part, we did the last show we did at the Whiskey. We had Chad. I don't know if you've ever seen Chad was in Pretty Boy Floyd during the Size Really Does Matter era.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was like early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had so Chad came in and did rhythm guitars on that for that show. for the whiskey, and it was awesome. And
You guys got you got another show coming up at the whiskey as well, correct? With the DeMauls, is that right?
Yeah, man. Those are gonna be fun. I think we have 2 shows, so we're doing Vamped and then the whiskey the next night.
Man, what a classic act to go out with.
Awesome. Yeah, I had heard him mention that before. Like, I had heard Steve kind of talk about that, but I didn't pay any attention really. And then once he said it, he goes, "Yeah, we lined this up, so we're gonna do the malls." I was like, "What?" Like, those are gonna be cool. Those are gonna be cool because those guys are another. For me, they're kind of like Rock's Gang. Like, dude,
Yeah, I have.
So where they did like their couple albums from back in the day that were just amazing, but then kind of stayed a little more underground. I know DeMauls had more than just a couple albums, but their sound is so cool. It's like gonna be the perfect 2 bands for that.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be epic. Yeah, 2 dates. Yeah, you guys have quite a few dates and treks coming up. I know that you guys are going out on the road with Trickster, Enough's Enough, and is it Janet Gardner from Vixen? You got a few dates with her and her band. Are you guys?
Yep.
Is that trek like several weeks? Is that only just one-off shows here and there?
So it's like split up where it's gonna be. If you look at the tour schedule, there will be probably about 3 or 4 weeks where it's just nonstop. But along the way, we're going to have a couple day breaks. We'll probably just end up back at home because if some of the shows are local enough to where we are. But as far as like the other acts, the Trickster one is back to back for like 3 weeks.
Nice.
Straight with them. The one with Janet Gardner's band, I think those are the Hawaii dates.
Okay.
So we're going to be in Hawaii. I think it's 3 shows over 5 days or 4 days or something. So it's the Enough's Enough one. Yeah, that'll be with Trickster as well. So it's like all the bands are on, and then some bands get off the tour. Some continue. One band leaves, one comes back, kind of thing.
Okay.
But that's just for this chunk of months right now. I mean, like Steve tells me, he's just like, be ready because we're still adding them on. So I'm pretty excited to that because it's a lot of fun. Like it's a lot of work, and I can kind of see why some people don't like the tour life or something like that. And some of these guys have like 3 acts they're in, and they're always on the road.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's definitely a lot. So yeah, you guys have a date coming up in St. Louis. I think it's the Golden Record on May 22nd that I desperately going to try to make happen because I definitely like to make it to that show. That'd be very stellar. So
Yeah, if you're coming, let me know. I'll put you and a couple plus ones on there.
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be cool,
I'll definitely let you know.
Right on, man.
So there was something that caught my interest, because I always see you posting stuff, and something that caught my interest was I've seen you in videos with kids in the background, and so what's going on with the School of Rock thing?
So I fell into that. And I hate to break the illusion for a lot of people, but it's like I'm not being paid $1 million, by anyone.
Oh no, certainly not. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of these guys, like I said, have 2 or 3 acts they're touring with that pay their, that gets them by just fine. I know one guy, I won't name him, but he does his band, and then he's a full-on youth intervention counselor specialist. Like,
nice.
Great. So when I joined Pretty Boy Floyd, I had, the 9 to 5 that I had been with for a long time, and they were very accommodating until it got to where when Ashes told me, "Hey, I'm leaving. It's all you," and then Steve was like, "Yeah, do you want it?" I was like, "Yeah." Walked right into my job and was like, "Here's my 2 weeks." Kid. Kind of just put all cares to the side, and just the next day went and started looking for different gigs that I could do. And I luckily found School of Rock. And I know other guys that, in the touring scene that work at School of Rock. And I fell into that on a whim. Like, it was just one of those things where I was driving by it and it said, "Musicians wanted." And I was like, "This is fucking perfect."
Right.
So I went in, and I didn't look too different than I do now when I went in. And the lady happened to be there who owns the franchise in my area. And so her and her husband own like 4 of them. And she's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was just like, well, I play guitar, I can do a little bass, I can sing. But I can definitely teach kids, like how to do this. She's like, "All right, go home and fill out an application online, and I'll get back to you." I filled it out, and she called me back the next day. She's like, "Come in for a proper interview, and we'll get you going." And so I told him right away, I was like, "Look, this band I'm with has a very hefty tour schedule chunked out through the year. So I can work whenever, but when I'm gone for like a weekend, or I'll be, and then I'll be gone for 2 weeks. I'll be home for a month, then I'm gone for 3 weeks. Then I'll be home for like 4 months, then I'm gone for 1 month," kind of thing. And she was like, "Perfect. That's perfect." I was like, "Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, this lines up so well." And they've been so awesome. Like, they've been so accommodating, and I'm doing really well there. And I use it to kind of promote, a lot of other things I have going, and they love the active musicianship because it helps them sell their brand.
Right.
And School of Rock is very performance based, so it's it's one of those things where the kids go, and it's not just like they're learning how to play an instrument. You're learning to play your instrument so you can play in a band. Like, the whole point of it is, like, when the kids go there, they're playing in a band. So one of the things I posted recently was like a bunch of little kids that were like yelling at me, and that was my young group. Like, I have 4 groups, and I teach so I'll do private lessons to teach people how to play guitar, bass, and then I have my groups. So I have 2 little kid groups where they're like 6, 7, 8, and 9, and they have never played an instrument before. But over the course of 2 months, they learn how to play 2 songs together as a band from scratch. And then they just keep going. Every couple months, they evolve into a new season, and then they graduate up into the teenage groups. We just did one now where I'm directing. It's called Classic Metal Season. So I have a bunch of teenagers, and I'm teaching them to perform like "Welcome to the Jungle," "Peace Sells" by Megadeth, "Seek and Destroy."
Oh, wow.
But Freeze, Skid Row stuff,
Yeah.
Through Wasp, Poison, all the cool stuff, Iron Maiden. But yeah, so School of Rock, that's where like I'm at, like when I'm not doing Pretty Boy Floyd, like I'm there or doing, other little things in the works.
That's super cool. I'm sure those kids dig that they're working with a touring musician, and some. Oh yeah. Because I'm sure their parents are going, "Holy cow! Wow, this guy plays for Pretty Boy Floyd. You can believe that?" So,
if you mind, I have a question actually, because we've been watching, videos of you practicing, and or doing videos and stuff. You play lefty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you always play lefty? Did you adapt a right guitar to left, or did you start with a lefty guitar?
Always been lefty, man. My first guitar was a right-handed, because when you don't know anything about music and It's like, oh, a guitar is a guitar.
Right.
And so when I went to my first lesson when I was a kid, I was holding my guitar, and he goes, "You're holding it upside down." Well, I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, I remember literally thinking that, like, this is supposed to be on top. That, like, the skinny string, the high E is supposed to be on top. And then he's like, "No," and flipped it, and he's like, "You're left-handed." I was like, "Yeah, well, I draw with this hand." He goes,
Yeah.
"You're left-handed." And, so I had started. He goes, but here's the kicker. He said, "I highly recommend I teach you right-handed."
I highly recommend.
Because it's going to be a little harder, but you can do it. You just your brain will just trick itself into that. But it'll be easier. Like, if you ever want to you have more availability for instruments. If you ever need to go somewhere and rely on someone else's instrument, you're there. Otherwise, you're kind of boxing yourself in. And I was like, "No, I'm comfortable like this." And my grandmother, was just like, "No, yeah, I don't want to push him too hard. Like, if he's left-handed, I'll get him a left-handed one." And that was it.
Right on. That's cool.
No, I love it. I get kind of screwed because if I go somewhere and I see, guys like, or we're backstage somewhere and everyone's showing off their gear, and I see so many cool guitars that I could just never do anything with.
Oh, yeah.
Like, someone had like this old like 80s Les Paul Custom that was just really relic and beautiful and sounded awesome. They're like, "Oh, you want to give it a shot?" And I was like,
Sorry, I can't. Your guitar is backwards.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong. Highly recommend you switch to lefty.
Yeah.
"Yeah, bring me a lefty next time." Yeah.
Are those guitars that you play? Are those have you always been big on those? I mean, you play is it a Gibson that you play?
Was that a 56 gold top?
So yeah, this one's it's a 50s reissue gold top.
Yeah.
And lefty, they did like the 50s standard. And I've loved Les Pauls for like the last probably like 15 years. I remember in my early teens, I loved like Telecasters. And they just sounded great. I had like a couple Telecasters, a Strat, an SG. But once I held the Les Paul, I was like, "Oh, this is it. Like this, I love this feel." Not, they can be like really light, like the hollowed out ones, if they're weight relief, I'm cool with that. But it's just the feel, the overall feel and look. We'll admit it's an aesthetic thing too. They just look badass, like.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Especially that white one that you have. That's a sweet guitar.
This white one, this is one of the new Epiphone ones. And I've always loved, like I said, being like big into punk and stuff. I like Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. I always thought he was one of the coolest guitar players in the world. And so when they did these, and they were like $800, I was like, "Well, that sounds way better than $7,000."
Yeah.
Because if you go anywhere and try and get a left-handed Gibson custom, and they only do them now as a made-to-order, and I think you have to get one from a batch if they do like a batch order, or like a shop that might want some. So like it would be really hard to just be like, "Hey Gibson, like, yeah, I'd like to custom order a left-handed white Les Paul custom." I don't think they would do that. Unless you reach out to a shop who is placing, like I said, batch orders. But so the white one, dude, I love that one. I got that one, and it just I was like, "This is gonna be my touring guitar," because it's nice. It's placed beautifully. It's got good weight to it, but it's inexpensive enough to where if something happens, I'm not out
a ton of money. Yeah.
the amount of dollars. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dizzy, for hanging out with us.
Yeah,
We really
thanks.
appreciate you being here, man. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties in this recording, but we did discuss a little bit about not only him being covered in tattoos, but also being a tattoo artist himself. So we look forward to having him back for another episode where we're going to dive deep into his experience as a tattoo artist. But in the meantime, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell so that you'll be notified of every new episode as it comes.
Yeah, you don't want to miss part 2.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Peace.